I went to El Salvador for the first time in November 2021 during the Adopting Bitcoin and a lot of BitConf conferences, and also, when the volcano bonds were announced.
Yeah, Samson Mouse thing. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so I went with Max and Stacy. We filmed a few Kaiser reports. We filmed a few other things. And when I was there, it felt so nice being there. It was the first time I actually spent Bitcoin, sats. And it was a beautiful experience. There were two women on the beach, and one had, a phone and a QR code, and the other had a beer and a bottle opener. I scanned the QR code. It's like, I hear ding. I see the green check mark. I hear, and then I'm holding this cold beer looking at the sunset. And it was just like, all my senses got hit. You know what I mean?
Welcome back to the Freedom Footprint Show, a Bitcoin philosophy show with Knut Svanholm and me, Luke the PseudoFinn. With us today is Bitcoin Shooter, Bitcoiner, independent filmmaker, and storyteller. We'll talk about his experience in El Salvador, shooting his short film Comeback Country, his plans for a full-length movie, and his hopes for the future. From his first time spending sats to a discussion about the symbiotic nature of Bitcoin, we have a lot to dive into. We'll even cover a topic that I'm particularly interested in, so stay tuned for that. But before we start, just a reminder that the best way you can support the show is to stream us some sats or send us a boost on a value-for-value podcasting app like Fountain or Breeze. If you get value from the show, please consider sending us some value back. Thanks to everyone who is already supporting the show this way. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a weekly episode. And finally, we want to thank today's sponsors, Orange Pill app, Wasabi Wallet, and Consensus Network. All their information is in the description, and we'll talk a little more about them later. And so, without further ado, Bitcoin Shooter on the Freedom Footprint Show. Okay, Bitcoin Shooter, welcome to the Freedom Footprint Show.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. Happy to be here. Very excited for our talk today.
Happy to have you, man.
Okay, just to start off, can you tell us a little bit and our audience about yourself and the work that you're doing?
Yeah, sure. So I'm an independent filmmaker. I've been doing it for 15 years, mostly for businesses, making 2 to 3 minute short films. Over the last year, really getting into the Bitcoin space, did some stuff for Max and Stacy, made a short 10-minute film on El Salvador called Comeback Country. And now I'm working on a full-length film to talk about inflation, corruption, and of course, Bitcoin. So that's what I'm doing.
Sounds great. Yeah, Comeback Country. I watched that movie. A fascinating story about a fascinating country. I guess you spent a lot of time there. Like how much time have you spent there in total at this point?
Not a ton of time, but in total, I've probably been there for about a month.
Yeah. There's a lot of different opinions about what's going on in that country. Like Bukele has obviously done some great stuff with the Bitcoin thing and lowering taxes and freeing up stuff. And but also like building a giant prison and then imprisoning people for having tattoos. Then again, it's a country that I guess needed a bit of iron gloves to get their problems sorted out, because there was a lot of murders and stuff, gang violence going on there. So what's your view on that? What's your view on Bukele and what he's doing? Like, what's your opinion, if you could even say? I mean,
right? No, of course, yeah, of course I can. So the first thing he said was there's different opinions as to what El Salvador is doing, and I think that's true outside of El Salvador. But if you actually go visit El Salvador and you just talk to regular people, it's unanimous. I don't think I came across one person actually that was critical of Bukele. They were all very, very, very happy with what he's doing. And the common theme was, they see the change in the country. And it's not just somebody who's saying they're going to do things and they're going to believe what he says. So, if you go off of the opinions of the people who live there, it's pretty unanimous that they are, they're living a life that they never thought they could. Imagine, living in a house where you have a gang on this side of your street and another gang on this side of your street. And if you go to this side, this gang assumes you're from this side and vice versa. And people were telling me they literally couldn't leave their houses. So of course they're experiencing, a much better life. And in terms of the prisons, well, it's been a problem that's festering for decades, right? The gangs have killed more people than the Civil War did. They were just like festering there. And so you have tens of thousands of gang members shaking, everyone down from businesses to like tortilla sellers. And previous administrations, weren't doing anything about it. I've interviewed people that have said that, like this one woman I talked to almost got kidnapped. And luckily there was a security guard by, and she kind of got his attention, and the guy ran away. And she told the security guard, like, hey, like, why don't you call the police? Like, let's arrest this guy. And the security guard said, what for? They're not going to do anything. He's just going to know more about you, where you live, and he'll probably go there and kill you. So I think when you have a country that the justice system isn't working, they're not locking people up, you're going to have a lot of criminals. Yeah, you're going to have a lot of people to put in prison. So yeah, I think they're doing a good job based on what I hear from the people down there. Talk to Gladstein or you talk to people on Twitter, you're going to get a different perspective. But you go down there and you'll hear from the people.
Yeah, the reason I'm reluctant to embrace El Salvador as some sort of utopia at this point is that what you're telling me is very similar to another place I've been to that also had, a corrupt government before there was a revolution. And nowadays, everyone is pro-government and everyone says that everything's dandy. And that place is Cuba, 50 years after the revolution. And that was one of the scariest places I've been to just because of that everyone loved the government, which was obviously a lie to a large extent because they didn't dare say anything else because of, threat of imprisonment. Obviously, Bukele is more pro-free market than the communists in Cuba. But what I'm scared of is that kind of development that you get in El Salvador 50 years down the line, where everyone says that they're perfectly happy with the government, but they only say so because they have a barrel pointed at their face. So any concerns like that? Did you feel like...
No concerns at the moment. And, my position is like, I don't trust any politician ever, right? And that's why I went down there and I talked 100%. To people. Exactly. And my opinion is based on what I've heard from the people. In the future, if that develops, then I think absolutely we should be more concerned about it and start to speak up. But, in the meantime, it seems like it's good. People are happy. And also, the country comes from, a great distrust of their government. And I'm not sure if that's true with Cuba in the past too, but I know that they like Bukele, but I'm not so sure that they're like, rah, we trust the government, entirely. So again, my position is if it becomes a problem, if the people down there are saying, hey, this is a problem, we can't speak out. There's no free press. There's these things which they're saying now, but I don't see very much evidence of it. But I think if it becomes a problem in the future, we should address it then. But for now, I just don't see any body or any person outside of the citizens of El Salvador that have a greater say of what they can and cannot do with their country or what is and what is not good.
Yeah, good to hear. I'm just scared that Bukele is probably fine. But what scares me is whatever government takes over after Bukele when they have this big prison infrastructure and this big police force, and you don't get a Bukele on top, but you get someone with way worse intentions. That's always a risk. And I guess if a country is in, on the verge of a civil war almost, you need to clean it up. That's sort of that politician's job, even though, yeah. What we here at the Freedom Footprint show think about politicians and governments in general. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you too. Like, I don't trust. I mean, with Bitcoin, you learn not to really trust anybody. Of course, you develop friendships and you do build trust with people, but in general, you don't trust. But I'll give you a hard question, like along these lines, right? So let's say the people of El Salvador, the vast majority of them want Bukele for a third term, fourth term, fifth term. What do you think of that? And who has the right to tell them otherwise?
I don't know what their constitution says. Can he be reelected a third time?
Who wrote the constitution?
I don't know who wrote the constitution. but it's probably a dead person. So from a strict Austrian economics perspective, that would be an invalid contract on the just because all the people who wrote it are dead.
Right. So the Constitution is like, it's politics, right? So you have the Bukele side that says, hey, the Constitution says you can't run back to back. But what I've heard, one of their tactics is they're going to have him bow out 6 months or something before his term is up, and then he can run again. So I think the Constitution is muddy. One side says absolutely he can't do it. The other side says, hey, there's a way that he can do it. But again, I'd like to think a level higher and think, well, if 90% of the people want him, right? Someone else is going to step in and say, hey, this document that was written in, I'm pretty sure after the Civil War, and who knows what kind of influences, right? I mean, we know about IMF giving money to countries, and okay, you want this money, you have to, agree to these terms. I'm not sure, but I imagine that the Constitution was probably written in a similar manner. And so, yeah, I don't think the Constitution matters as much. That people should be able to change the Constitution. And but I understand people's wariness of, hey, like having someone in power for a long time. But on the flip side, if 90% of the country wants it, who can tell them no?
But this is the dilemma of politics. Like, this all reminds me of the Weimar Republic in Article 38, which was like emergency measures because they had a hard economic time. Inflation hit hard. I mean, the Weimar Republic had a very solid constitution, but because they implemented this Article 38, that's the very article that Hitler then used to ban all the parties he didn't like and take absolute control of the country later down the line. So this is the thing with constitutions and with, changing rules in general. And this is what I view as the best argument for conservatism there is, that if the rules are really, really hard to change, then at least people know what kind of rule book to play by. Like, so you can always circumvent the rules that are there, and there's some form of stability into the future, which is partly why I'm in love with Bitcoin, because it's really fucking hard to change the rules. It's almost impossible to change the rules unless everyone thinks it's a good idea. And then it is what you described, Bukele's third term to be an agreement. Like, there's a consensus around that this is a good idea. So why the hell not?
Yeah. And again, I mean, you set your bed, you make your bed and you lay in it. So if the people of El Salvador want him for a third term and fourth term, and if it turns out ugly, I think at this point they're okay with that, just because of how bad things have been before, and how outside influence has really changed the country. So I don't know. I reserve the right to change my opinion on everything, but so far it seems like, again, like a comeback story of a lifetime. People, like, everyone's leaving the country, right? There's no opportunities there. That's what everybody's goal is. And now it's changing. People actually see that, hey, maybe I can stay here. Maybe I can make a living here. And all the people that fled are now thinking, maybe I can retire in my country. I can go back home. Like, I can't tell you countless people who I've heard, seeing family again for the first time in 10 years or 15 years, bringing their kids. Like, a woman got pregnant in El Salvador, left the country to the US because she didn't want to have her raise her kid there. And the kid, first time coming to El Salvador, 20 years old, meeting his grandparents, and how quickly things have turned around is absolutely stunning and incredible. And right now, the energy is amazing. So I reserve the right to change my opinion in the future, but right now it is. I think it's the story of the century, man. Maybe a couple of centuries. It's quite incredible.
Yes, I need to play the devil's advocate in a conversational setting, but I'm very glad to hear that. I'm very glad to hear of your positive views of the country. From what I know, there's not that much of Bitcoin adoption, but that goes for every place in the world that is doing Bitcoin adoption. It takes a lot of time. It's going to take generations, this thing, probably. I mean, it's very hard for people to change their mind about something as basic as money. But what I do know about El Salvador is that the tourism sector has just boomed since they did the Bitcoin move. So Bitcoiners from all over the world go there and spend their money there, whether it's fiat or Bitcoin. They enjoy seeing the country, and I'm looking forward to seeing it one day myself. Nothing planned at the moment, but one day, you never know when. But tell me more about, like, so you went to El Salvador and you made this film a comeback country, about this change in the country. What was your experience making the film, and how was it received when you finally released it? And what was that experience like?
Right. So I went to El Salvador for the first time in November 2021 during the Adopting Bitcoin and a lot of BitConf conferences, and also, when the volcano bonds were announced.
Yeah, Samson Mouse thing. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so I went with Max and Stacy. We filmed a few Kaiser reports. We filmed a few other things. And when I was there, it felt so nice being there. It was the first time I actually spent Bitcoin, sats. And it was a beautiful experience. There were two women on the beach, and one had, a phone and a QR code, and the other had a beer and a bottle opener. And I scanned the QR code. It's like, I hear ding. I see the green check mark. I hear, and then I'm holding this cold beer looking at the sunset. And it was just like, all my senses got hit. You know what I mean?
I know. This is so hard to explain to people. They're like, oh, you just spent some money. Hurrah. No, I didn't just spend some money. I spent something. I gave to this person in this third world country. I gave something that is incorruptible for the next 10,000 years. Like, it's so big, and people just don't get that. But I can imagine that feeling is beautifully put, like the green check mark and the opening of the beer. Like,
it was everything, like my ear, I heard it, I saw it, I tasted the beer. Like, it was all this transaction. And as you say too, on top of that, you're sending someone this beautiful, life-changing money. I mean, seems to be the first money ever that can't be inflated. Every other money has been inflated. So it is a magical thing. But just talking to people down there, like, the vibe was just so nice. People were so kind, and so when I got back home, I wanted to learn more about the country, and I looked into the history, and then I learned about the Civil War and the U.S.'s involvement in that. We gave $5 billion to the government of El Salvador to help fight the guerrillas. I don't point fingers at one side or the other, but the reality was people in the country were starving, and that's how the guerrillas were able to round up the farmers and these poor people to fight. And then we just pour gasoline on it by funding the war and giving them an incentive, the government incentive, just to keep it going. You're getting $1 million a day if the war keeps going. So why not keep it going? So when I learned all that history and the fact that the gangs actually started in Los Angeles because people fled El Salvador from the Civil War, and then Clinton sent a bunch of these people back in 96 when he signed the Immigration Act. And then after that, it's just absolute devastation, chaos, murder, rape, everything, the worst you can imagine, right? So learning all of this, I was really inspired, and I wanted to put a piece together for the country. It was just something that was eating at me, like constantly. I couldn't stop thinking about it. And so I went back in May with my girlfriend. She was actually really nervous of me going in November. She actually threatened to leave me because she was going to be so stressed, thinking that I was going to die in El Salvador. We got past that. And then she went with me in May. On that trip, I interviewed this owner of a hotel down in Bitcoin Beach, El Zonte, called Palo Verde. And his story really connected the dots for me. He, like many other people, left the country looking for opportunities. He was a professional. Went to school overseas and was doing business professionalism work overseas, and then decided that he wanted to come back to his country and try to improve his own country. The way he thought about doing it was to attract tourism and to start a hotel. And the balls to do that based on the image of the country is just crazy. And so that really opened my eyes. And I thought, you know what? That's what I want this film to do. I want to show people the history of El Salvador, and hopefully it will inspire them to go visit and to go be a part of this change and to continue help these people flourish. That was really when I connected the dots and I knew what the storyline was going to be. And then, I already work 50, 60 hours a week doing films for businesses. So in my off time, and in my normal, girlfriend time, I started carving up some of that time and putting it towards the film. I chopped it together in about 4 months, presented it, the first rough draft, to people at BitBlock Boom. Privately, the response was tremendous. I mean, absolutely tremendous. Not only people were saying, there were so many things I didn't know about, and like I learned a lot in this little 10-minute film, but also how engaging it is and the pace of it. And it's much different than any other like Bitcoin content out there. And so that was really great. Of course, I had people that were warning me that, hey, you might come under some fire and get some heat for, like putting Bukele on a pedestal or, making him seem like he's this great guy. But again, I try to leave out any opinions and just talk to people on the ground and real people and just tell that story. And honestly, I didn't get too much pushback, to be honest with you. It's actually been quite positive all around. So I put the film out on September 30th, which was the anniversary of the Clinton signing the Immigration Act. That was September 30th, 1996, which sent a lot of these gang members back. And then a couple of days later, Knut Bukele is reposting the film. And so that led to a lot more attention. A lot of people that I sent the film to like a month ago were finally like, oh, I just watched it, I'm like, yeah, I was sure you did. And then Adopting Bitcoin invited me out to talk about the film and to screen it. And then that led to like a couple Salvadorans who saw the film that were at the event and like came to me, teary-eyed after and said, I lived through this. I really appreciate you doing this. I interviewed them also, and I've since added it to the film. And yeah, and then because of all this too, people really encouraged me to, hey, it's time to make a feature film, to pick a topic and start raising some money. And that's what I'm doing now. So yeah, that's kind of the story in a nutshell.
What a beautiful story. And the obvious follow-up question here is, of course, what's he paying you? Bukele, that is.
Yeah, no.
But
this was all on my own time and my own dime.
I know, dude. I'm just kidding with you.
Actually, I did hear that. For sure, I did hear that from people. Who's paying this? Who's funding this? I'm like, bro, it's me.
But that's the thing. I get that question too. Like, oh, you're working for Bitcoin now. Who's paying you? Like, well, I'm paying me. Like, what the hell is this? And that's the thing. Ludwig von Mises said to his wife, or I don't remember if it was Mises or Rothbard who told his wife, like, if you think that going down this Austrian economics rabbit hole is going to make me money, then you should get another husband, because no one's going to pay to hear this. It's the other way around. They pay fiat economists to tell them what they want to hear, to tell them that you should spend more money. Government should spend more money. Yes, you should subsidize this or this sector. Yes, you should give a tax cut to this or this industry. That's what they want to hear. So doing things for real is, well, if you do it for the money in the first place, then it's not for real. And we don't do Bitcoin for the money. We do it for the money, to change the money. Anyway, so that film you're working on now, it's a full-length feature film, but it's still going to be a documentary, I guess?
Yes.
Yeah, you said before we started that you were going to travel the world and do a movie. So tell us a bit about that and what you're working on, and what the timeline is.
Yes.
For lack of a better word, what the roadmap is. The roadmap, that's the word I'm looking for.
Absolutely. Yeah. The storyline of the film is, so when I made the El Salvador film, I was very clear that it was an El Salvador film. It wasn't a Bitcoin film. It was an El Salvador film. Of course, Bitcoin plays a big role. And this film will be no different, because people have preconceived notions of Bitcoin, I find. And if you start with it, you're going to lose a lot of people right off the bat. So this will be a film about inflation, and it's going to answer some basic questions. Why does everything get more expensive? And of course, it's because money's being printed. So then the next question logically is, okay, well, who's getting this money? And in that area, that's what I was doing in Virginia these last couple of days at the Beef Initiative Micro Summit at Ginger Hill Angus in Washington, Virginia, to basically interview people to talk about how inflation is corrupting health and food and science. So I had the pleasure of interviewing Texas Slim and Dr. Brooke Miller, who is a rancher and a doctor, and Dr. Robert Malone, the inventor of the mRNA technology. So why is everything getting more expensive? Who's getting the money? How it's corrupting basically all of the pillars of our life, right? Food, health, science, education, media, housing. I'm sure your brother can appreciate the housing problem, Knut.
I told that story in another pod, I guess.
Yeah, I've heard that. And then from there, the question is, okay, so we're inflating. Everything's being corrupted. What happens next? I'm going to cover that in a few ways. First of all, of course, going back and looking at history, showing every money has gone this way. It's collapsed, and it always ends in just mass poverty and death, essentially. But also, of course, show it happening now, and it happening more modernly. So like going to Argentina, talking to people down there. What's life like with 100% inflation? Lebanon, maybe, right? What's life like when the value of your currency gets cut 90% overnight? How does life change? And then, of course, going to the places of like scorched earth, perhaps. So Venezuela, or maybe Zimbabwe. I got to figure out the logistics of it. Yeah.
Your girlfriend is not going to be very happy about
Yeah, El Salvador was just breaking the ice. That was
Yeah.
an easy one, baby.
I'm going to North Korea and Sudan next.
Yeah, exactly. But again, just to really answer the question of what happens next, this is what happens next. So it's a black pill for the first half of the film, certainly. Put them in a very dark place, and then introduce Bitcoin. This is this first money ever that can't be inflated, and this is why. And these are all of the bad things you've heard about it. And this is the other side of that, right? Energy, right? Look at people living without any energy. They desperately need energy, and Bitcoin can bring that to them, right? Can you lose all your money? Absolutely, you can lose all your money if you don't take custody, if you try to get yield on it, if you borrow against it, perhaps if you lend it out, right? So yeah, that's the flow of the film. Why does everything get more expensive? Who's getting it? What happens next? What is all this Bitcoin stuff? And then it ends with, money is essentially confidence. And, what money do you put your confidence in? A money that can be inflated or money that can't be inflated? So that's the storyline. That's the plan. And I hope to have it done by the halving.
Oh, nice. Oh, well, it's a beautiful idea and a beautiful plan. And the halving, the halving is like 1.5 years away or something, right?
I think it's 1 or maybe even less, depending if
maybe
the hash rate keeps going up.
Yeah, I haven't checked for a while. I mean, the halvings are just there in the background somewhere. And every once in a while you get reminded that, oh, this thing is happening as well. This is why this thing is so cool. I mean, I should probably pay attention to this.
Today's show is brought to you by our sponsors. First up, Orange Pill app. Stack friends who stack sats. Meet like-minded Bitcoiners near you and speed up hyper-Bitcoinization with Orange Pill app. Bitcoin isn't an online-only phenomenon, and Orange Pill app helps facilitate the social layer, connecting Bitcoiners in their local area. The best part is it maintains your privacy through the whole process, and since you have to subscribe to access the app, you know that everyone there is high signal and cares about Bitcoin. A great new feature is events. You can now create local events and meetups right from the Orange Pill app to help build your local community while maintaining the Bitcoin-only signal. Orange Pill app is available on iOS and Android. Download now. Next up, Wasabi Wallet, an open-source, non-custodial desktop Bitcoin wallet that is trustless, easy to use, and affordable. It has CoinJoin built in to facilitate your privacy. Every Bitcoin transaction leaves a clear footprint, but with Wasabi, you can make sure that others can't track your steps and threaten your sovereignty. Just send your coins to Wasabi, wait, and your coins will be private on the other end. It's open source, trustless by design, and non-custodial. You have full control over your keys. Check it out now at wasabiwallet.io. Double check that link. That's wasabiwallet.io.
Let me plant a thought in your head. This is what I've been incorporating into my talks, and I'm elaborating on the subject further and further. That maybe you heard the idea that if your brain is the only place the seed phrase exists in, then you are your Bitcoin, literally. That's one of my mind dynamite monger shticks. But if you think about it even deeper than that, you realize that all Bitcoins are like that. Because all it is keeping a secret. So even if you have your seed phrase on a hardware device or a piece of paper or anywhere else, then whoever gets access to that thing has the Bitcoin. But where that thing is, where the location of that thing is, and that it actually is a Bitcoin private key, because that might not, if people just see 12 random words, might not be very easy to figure out that that is what it is. Well, if that information is all in your head, then you are your Bitcoin too. So when you think deeply about that, then everyone in Bitcoin is their own Bitcoins. So there's no distinction between this network and the person and the people in it. And you can think about it even deeper than that. Like, what's a node? What does it mean to run a node? Well, you run a node. We say that you buy a Raspberry Pi and you install Umbrel or MyNode or whatever, and you run the software. But what is that really? The software is only a tool for helping you calculate. You're the one that makes the active choice to solve the problem in the first place. The problem is making sure that miners find a correct random number that represents the next block in the blockchain, or the next block in the time chain. But the machine itself the computer it's just a tool to make you to help you calculate this number. It's nothing but a fancy abacus. So it's an extension of your mind. So in a very real and very true sense, you're the node. The hardware is not the node. The software is not the node. You're the node because you're the one making the active choice. Now, now think of the miners themselves. What are they doing? I mean, there's big ass data centers full of ASICs that try to guess this random number over and over again, and it's consuming more energy than Switzerland and all this stuff. But is that really the miner? Well, what are these ASICs doing? They're calculating, so they're just guessing a number. They're helping us guess the number because the number has to fit certain criteria. It has to, incorporate transactions that were in the mempool and run through a hash and so on. But all it's doing is guessing a number. So not even the ASICs are the miners. Like the miner is the actual person making the choice to buy the hardware and start guessing the number. Yes. So everything in Bitcoin starts and ends with a human being and a human mind. It is truly, literally all in our heads. The computers surrounding it are just tools to help us calculate faster. But it is, at its core, all in our heads. And which means that we all are, I mean, the saying goes, we're all Satoshi except Craig, which is true. But what's even truer than that is that we're all Bitcoin, literally. So if we're all Bitcoin, if I am Bitcoin and you are Bitcoin and the people of El Salvador are Bitcoin, then you are me. And I am you. You are the people of El Salvador. I am the people of El Salvador. Luke is the people of El Salvador, and a handful of people in Finland. And to me, when you start seeing it this way, this is like, to me, getting to these thoughts were like yet another deeper level of rabbit hole, Because I'm sure you've noticed when raising money for the new film that it's pretty easy to get people on your side in Bitcoin. And it's kind of mind-blowing how appreciated your work is because it's related to Bitcoin and helps Bitcoin. And this is because all of the Bitcoiners' incentives are aligned. We all want Bitcoin to succeed, so we all want to help one another. And it's very beautiful like that. And if you add the lowered time preference on top of that, it's even more beautiful because we all want to help each other make quality stuff and not just make a quick buck.
Yes.
So add that together with the fact that we literally are each other. Yes. That's like, no wonder our incentives are aligned. But all of a sudden we have a system where we can truly be what all these new age LSD shamanistic people tell you all the time, that we're all the part of the same consciousness and whatnot. That is actually true now. And we can prove it. Because we have the time chain, and I can prove that we are our private keys. I can prove that you are me. It's ridiculously so. Why shouldn't we just help one another with everything? And why shouldn't our incentives be all aligned? And why shouldn't we just be nice to one another? And this is the thing I think that people misinterpret about Bitcoin and what a hyper Bitcoinized world looks like. It's just everybody being fucking awesome to one another all the time. And what could be better than that?
Yeah. So one thing, so what I think about is a few things, right? So Max Kaiser talks about this, like we're heading to like the Bitcoin singularity. So it sounds a lot like what you just described, right?
Yeah.
We're like, we all realize we're all one.
Yeah.
And we are all one. And ultimately we all do want the same things. But as you say, Bitcoin, this protocol, these rules, these are the perfect rules to incentivize that, to tap into our human nature and to actually make us behave that way. And so another thought, right? So another thought that I had is people always, there's this debate in Bitcoin, like, oh, Bitcoin needs this. Bitcoin needs us to do this. And if we follow your line of thinking and we are Bitcoin, there is no separation. And that's my position too. People it goes back to the argument, has Bitcoin already won? Yes, Bitcoin has already won. And people will say, well, you're just going to sit back on your hands and just wait and wait for it to succeed. No, it has infected me. It has infected you.
It has changed you.
Absolutely.
Fundamentally changed you. Yeah.
Totally. You can't not have this podcast. You can't not write your books. Go ahead and try to stop yourself.
Yeah.
So, right? So Bitcoin has already won. And Bitcoin doesn't need anything. It's all happening naturally, organically. And like you say, Bitcoiners love to help other Bitcoiners because it's just a win-win-win. If I'm successful, that means more people find out about Bitcoin. That means there's less suffering in the world. That means that my wealth increases. That, it's just, there's all positives all the way around. So yeah, it is very beautiful. And it's almost as if like it's another dimension. And maybe it's with time. Maybe it lives with time, that dimension of time. But it's like this other.
It's that easy. It is time. It's the perfect representation of the scarcity of human time. So it is time in that sense. So it is a dimension.
Absolutely. I think we're just plugging into it, right? So like I see it as like you have your seed phrase, and there's like however many, a trillion or 100 or 100 trillion different safes, and the seed phrase is your key to that one safe, that one locker, and you're just that you're accessing that dimension, with that seed phrase. And the same thing with the node is, you are replicating that the Bitcoin's attachment to time, right? It's like it is like a node, like a plant, like the more there are, the wider it gets, it can survive greater and greater cataclysms or disasters. But also, you don't just run a node because you want to protect the network. You run a node because you want privacy, you want security, you want to make sure that your transactions are going through. So like that incentive works too. And then of course, same thing with mining. Like, as you say, there's this competition happening in the dimension of time to process these transactions. And these computers are simply plugging into that and competing to make sure that no one can control the transactions and censor people like they do in Canada.
And when we say these computers are tapping into that, what we really mean is that these people are tapping into that because their computers are just the tools they use to tap into that.
Yeah, it's like the people's arms. They're like additional fingers or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like the monkey figuring out that he can use a piece of grass straw to put into the hole of the ant hill to get more ants per second to eat. Like that.
Yes.
A computer is just that. It's the monkey figuring out that he can use a tool.
Yes.
And I mean, I can't stop thinking about this because it's so damn beautiful. I mean, Bitcoin has been called a life form many times over. And, it was Brandon Quidham who wrote that beautiful article about mycelia and Bitcoin being a form of fungi, a fungus, and all of that stuff. It's nice and but it's simpler than that. Of course, Bitcoin is a life form because it's nothing but us. It's us. Like, it's a life form. It's a human being. It's a ton of human beings. We just have another cardiovascular system now that connects us between our bodies and not only within our bodies. We have a cardiovascular system outside of our physical bodies, and it's. Yeah, I can't stop talking about it.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating, and it's great because the mining, right? The outcome of the mining is tapping into energy. Again, there are so many people around the world who don't have that base level of energy. Like literally, there are people dying every single day because they don't have energy, and so it's another just beautiful blooming as a byproduct of this, right? We are competing to guess this number. And therefore, we are trying to get more ants out of the hole. And that innovation makes us get more energy. And getting more energy is going to give more energy to people around the world. So, I mean, like, that's the most beautiful thing about Bitcoin is it's really hard to find a negative, really, other than yourself, right? Like making a mistake yourself and fucking yourself over. But that is what you have to pay to have a sound, exactly, to have a sound money. And like you say, like, we all have the same goals, right? We all really just want to be healthy. We want to have a house. We want to raise a family. And I think in general, people want to be kind to each other and they want to help people who need help.
Yeah.
But what happens is when you're in power, I think what you want to do is you want to stifle competition. And the way you stifle competition is you keep people weak. And you can see that in China. Literally, people starve over there, right? I mean, how can you revolt if you don't have any energy? And I think that's what happens here. And it's all about division. It doesn't matter what the division is, black, white, gay, straight, trans, whatever. Like they just want to divide us, have us talking about this or that. You're the bad person. You're the bad person. And it's easy for them to do that because they can put studies together to say what they want the studies to say. And then the studies go to the news, which are funded, by advertising by a lot of times the same companies or sister companies. And so this fake money gives these people the power to put that message out there to the lemmings, to the sheep, to the people that will just believe it. And so you take that away and you have these companies and these governments actually operate on a budget. You're not going to have so much of that bullshit brainwashing stuff out there, less division going on. And people will realize, we're all very similar. We all want the same thing. And yeah, you don't have to condemn somebody because they don't believe what you're doing or be hyperbolic and say, if you don't wear a mask, you're killing people. And therefore, I feel okay killing you, right? Because that seems logical. If you're killing people, I can kill you.
When you say them, though, we have to remember that even them are the same as you and me, and they have the same flaws in their brains, so that absolute power corrupts absolutely. And I think, you and me would probably have been corrupted too if we were given unlimited 100% power. That's the thing.
I tell people, if I gave you a money printer for your bedroom, are you sure you wouldn't use it? Are you sure? Because I think of the meme of the priest. There's a meme of a priest, the equivalent to the temptation of money printing. And he's praying, and right next to him is a very sexy girl.
Oh yeah.
Pants down.
Yeah.
And he's like, that's exactly what it is, man. So you're absolutely right. They are just people, just like you and I. They are just in the position that they're in. And if we were in their position, we would probably do exactly the same thing.
Yes. And what Bitcoin does, it removes the ability to do that. Yeah. Hopefully for the priest, it doesn't really remove that beautiful woman, but it gives him the choice. But it removes the temptation. That's the thing, because there's no temptation there. It's not possible. The temptation is the temptation is to follow the rules rather than to break them. Because we have rules without rulers now, the rules that we all benefit from. And it's just beautiful.
Yeah. So I was in the tech industry for a bit. I started a mobile app development company with a business partner of mine who became a very good friend, and I considered a brother at one time. And because of that, I was very loose with our business agreements. Mm-hmm. And because of that, it was possible for him to fuck me. And because of that, he did fuck me. And I was bitter for a while, but I realized that it was my fault. I left that as a possibility. And
so he was the priest and you were wiggling your ass.
Exactly. It was too tempting.
Luke is shaking his head. Are we getting banned, Luke? What's going on?
I think we'll be fine. You're just so good with your analogies always, Knut.
There's that sarcasm again. I can spot it these days, Luke.
You can.
Yeah.
So yes, making things impossible is important. It's very important, and that's why with Bitcoin, making it impossible to inflate the money is the magic of it. If it's impossible to inflate money, it will be inflated eventually, for sure.
Yeah, this is the thing. By making money scarce, you make everything else abundant, and by making money printing impossible, you make everything else possible. And by instilling, don't trust, verify into every mind of every Bitcoiner in the world, you create this network of people who trust each other. It's just beautiful. And by creating money for enemies, you get the byproduct of love. It's all of these beautiful, what's the word? Dichotomies? Is that the word?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And that's why, when you make a film about Bitcoin or you do anything about Bitcoin, you have to be very careful, right? Because I agree with you 100%. And I see all the beauty in that, But if you start talking like that to a normal person, they're going to be like, oh, wait a second. This is all this woo-woo kind of stuff,
Yeah. But this is a preaching to the choir show.
Yeah, exactly. Which is great because, iron sharpens iron, and we're both, solidifying our ideas even more and everything. So yeah, it's great. I love the way your brain thinks all of these things, I love talking about it.
I know I'm a hopium salesman to a certain extent. And that it might be too out there, but I think Bitcoiners need their conviction reinforced every now and then, because it's quite easy when you live in fiat world or clown world to forget why we're doing this thing in the first place, because clown world is putting up a lot of hinders in your way to blossom as a Bitcoiner. Which is why it's so beautiful to come to El Santo and pay for a beer with Sats, right? Because you see that it's really this easy. It was this easy all along. It's just that we were too fucking stupid to see it. But it's just to be nice to one another. That's all it is. That's all it takes.
Yeah, and hope is really equivalent to the future, right? I mean, if you have no hope, you really don't look forward to the future. You basically don't have a future. And so I think one of the reasons why Bitcoiners in general are so hopeful is because, well, thank God I learned about all the problems of money after Bitcoin existed. Because if I learned all the problems and then realized that there was no fucking way out, that would be depressing. I would probably very seriously consider not having a family, not having kids, because what's the point, right? Why bring them into a more difficult world? That's guaranteed. So you need hope. If there's no hope, then you might as well just commit suicide, because I mean, what's the point? What really is the point of going on if it's just going to get more and more difficult? Like, it makes more sense just to commit suicide.
I would hereby like to recommend a book by Michael Malice called The White Pill, his latest book, because it's about the Soviet Union and how the situation was exactly like that for everyone. There was like no hope for the future. Everything was very, very dark. And then it just disappeared overnight, basically, when that empire fell. So no matter how dark it gets, like, there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. And that's the thing. Bitcoin is hope. Here's another cliche, but it's true. It's a remedy for cynics, for sure. And I was one of them. Like, Bitcoin has, and not only in me, but in my extended family, and it has given us an injection of hope that the future might not be so bleak after all. There is something really hopeful going on here.
Yeah, and even for the people who don't get in now, right? That's something you hear too, is like, oh, well, the people that get in early are going to benefit. What about the people who didn't get in when the tides turn? And honestly, it's good for them too. You're finally going to live in a world with sound money. So it's hope for yourself. It's hope for everybody. I mean, Bitcoin, like you say, is us. It's just us. So it applies to all of us. It's going to benefit all of us. It'll wreck some of us.
One of the weirdest thoughts I have, and this is like hopium salesman on steroids, but it is that as Bitcoin grows and as we get this global actual free market that we never had before without any friction, what that does in the long run is that it reduces the production costs and the transportation costs of everything, even in fiat terms. Which means that even no coiners benefit from Bitcoin's success. And that's just mind blowing. Like, so everyone benefits, not only us. So saying that you're too late to Bitcoin is just like, no one's too late. Like, this thing is happening regardless of what you think about it. And it's going to make your life better, regardless of what you think about that. So that's just this thing playing out. And I love to see it. And I can't wait to see the movie. So what's the timeline? You said you released the other one on the same date as when Clinton sent troops to El Salvador. Was that
signed the Immigration Act, which shipped a lot of criminals back?
Yeah, shipped criminals back. Yeah. So when is this new movie due to come out?
Yeah. So I'm hoping to have it done by the halving. We'll see.
How it
develops. Yeah. We'll see how it develops. But one thing to note is, I'm still raising funds for it. So what I'm doing is I'm filling 20 seats, for investors, and each seat is like $25,000. So I'm halfway through now. Adam Back was my first investor, so that was pretty rad.
Oh, nice.
And that made me a little more biased. Now I'm like, Adam Back's Satoshi. Yeah, definitely Adam Back is Satoshi. Satoshi was the first investor in my film.
So you're backed by Adam.
Yeah, exactly. A bit. And that was really great. The day after I announced I was doing the film, he reached out to me and was on board like immediately. And that was tremendous. All kinds of momentum came after that. But so the idea is to get 20 investors and myself, and we will be the 21 feathered serpents. Feathered serpent is
Nice.
an Aztec god that came to the Aztecs. They called him Quetzalcoatl. They called him Cuculclan. There was like 10 or 12 or 15 different names for him across the world. Basically, that's Osiris in Egypt, for example. And the people talk about them as gods or very advanced humans. They called them gods, but they're humans that came and taught them where to farm, how to hunt, where to hunt, how to build a civilization. And so now I think what people need most is sound money, obviously. And that's what we're doing as the 21 Feathered Serpents. We're going around the world, we're sharing stories, and we're trying to spread this message of Bitcoin to bring peace and civilization around the world. So as I say, I'm halfway through. So anybody who watches this, if you have the means and interest to help me make a badass film, if you look at my stuff and you can see it on Netflix, that's the goal. Then help me make it a reality. Otherwise, sit back and enjoy. And at a minimum, it'll be a fabulous tool for Bitcoiners to introduce non-Bitcoiners. It's a much easier ask to watch a film than it is to read a book. And you can smash a lot of information in a film, and so I think it'll be a good tool to share with people. Hey, watch this. You'll see why things are getting more expensive, how it's corrupting all of this stuff, the history of money, how, inflation is happening all over the world, why Bitcoin can't be inflated, why all the FUD is bullshit. And then, read Everything Divided by 21 Million, read the Bitcoin Standard. And so, I'm hoping just to trip people down the rabbit hole in, 60 to 90 minutes. So anybody out there who wants to help me, if you have the means and interest, it would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, and if you don't feel humble enough to be a serpent half god just yet, you can support the Freedom Footprint Show instead, and maybe buy a book.
Fuck those guys! Sign me up! Come on.
Now we're helping all of our incentives are aligned. That's what this
Absolutely
is for. So yeah,
Absolutely.
if there's anything we can do to help the project, we'd love to too. We're short on time, of course, since we're getting to know all these awesome people. But yeah,
you've been reading your Graham Hancock, haven't you?
Yeah, well, I've been following Graham Hancock for a while now, and then of course the Ancient Apocalypse stuff on Netflix has really put it out there. But yeah, I believe that these feathered serpents back then were people that were from a advanced civilization that got wiped out during the floods, and they went around the world and they went to different hunter-gatherer civilizations who actually could survive a cataclysm. And they tried to, restart civilization. That makes the most sense to me based on all of the data that's out there, the asteroid impacts, and the Sphinx weathering. Right, the embankment of the Sphinx has a rainwater weathering that couldn't have occurred sooner than 12,000 years ago. So the Sphinx embankment was there at least that long. No one really knows how the pyramids are built. They're astronomically aligned to Orion's belt, like. Orion's belt and the Nile River match the skies. I'm sorry. The pyramids and the Nile River match Orion's belt and the Milky Way 12,800 years ago, which is when the Great Flood happened. So it's clear that there was a lot of knowledge back then. Yeah, I buy into that. I think that that's what happened. These people went around the world. They were very intelligent and they were showing people how to live. And again, I really see us Bitcoiners as the modern day feathered serpents. Bitcoin is the thing that is going to change the world. And as I said before, I think even if I don't make this film, it will do that. But I think I can maybe push it along a little bit. I can go to these places, share these stories, and hopefully be a feathered serpent with Bitcoin. So yeah, absolutely, man.
Yeah. And as you said before, you just can't stop yourself, right? I know the feeling. So yeah, I remain a, super advanced civilization 12,000 years ago skeptic, but I am willing to read the book. Luke, you'll have to remind me what it is later on. So
well, for anyone curious, it's Fingerprints of the Gods. At least that's what you should start with. And there's a couple of follow-ups, Magicians of the Gods, America Before. But Graham Hancock. I'm a big fan as well. And,
all right. It's interesting. Graham Hancock actually wrote a book about like the World Banks. I didn't know. I have to read it still. It's called The Lords of Poverty. And he basically was talking about how the different big world aid organizations, Red Cross and stuff like that, are all corrupt. And then he ends really with like the World Bank, apparently. Yeah, we'll see. I'm definitely like, part of getting on Netflix is you have to headhunt, right? It makes it much more likely that they'll pick up the film if you have big names and faces in there, which is why I was in Virginia, honestly, to interview Robert Malone. And it just worked out great. Like, I love what the guys are doing with the Beef Initiative, and I wanted to help them too. So I'm like, look, you help me get an interview with him, give me 25, 30 minutes with him, and I'll film the event. I'll do whatever you want me to do. I'll be there for the day, and, value for value. And that worked out great. And so, yeah, one of the heads I want to get is Graham Hancock. And so he's going to go to a few events this year, a few conferences. So I'm going to go get his ass. But yeah, it's super fascinating stuff.
The show is also sponsored and produced by Consensus Network, the first Bitcoin-only publishing house. Consensus specializes in translations of Bitcoin books and also publishes original titles in English and many other languages. Check out bitcoinbook.shop or consensus.network to see everything Consensus has to offer. We're also always looking for new contributors, whether you have a book you want to publish, you want to help translate books into your native language, or you have some other way you want to get involved. So if you want to help spread the Bitcoin message, reach out to us by Twitter or email. Details are in the show notes. And finally, you can check out knutsvanholm.com for everything Knut, including some great Everything Divided by 21 Million merch and the Infinity Red limited edition wine. That's knutsvanholm.com for everything Knut.
Yeah. So where can we meet you? What conferences are you going to? Are you coming to Miami, for instance?
Yeah, I'll be there in Miami. I'll be in Canada in July for the Bitcoin Rodeo.
Uh-huh.
And I'm going to be in Guatemala in the first week of May for the Bitcoin Summit. And then
Calgary, by the way, is that Bitcoin Rodeo?
I think it's in Calgary. It might be in Alberta.
It's the Calgary Stampede is the thing that's always in July. That makes sense. Glad to hear that's happening.
Okay,
Not
cool.
anymore.
Yeah. So those are the plans for now. And then as these things unfold, things change, and who knows where I'll be. But for now, yeah. And the beef guys want to go to Nigeria too. They have like a branch out there that they've been helping the cattlemen out there. And so maybe we'll do that together. But yeah, I really like what those guys are doing at the Beef Initiative.
All right. Yeah. Looking forward to seeing you in Miami then.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah. I'll be there from the 17th to the 21st, I think.
Yeah, me too. Exactly.
Yeah. Excellent. Luke, do we have any other questions for Shooter? Or
to be honest, I think this has been a good chat. We've gotten to know you. Looking forward to seeing more of your your work.
Yeah.
I'm staring at Knut's damn book. His praxeology book there.
Fuck books.
Yeah, fuck books. They're boring as hell to write, and no one reads them anyway.
This show is sponsored by Consensus Network. Pick up all your Bitcoin books at bitcoinbooks.shop. No, awesome. Got a great preview of your work, Shooter, and looking forward to seeing what you're going to produce. I enjoyed the little Graham Hancock little bit there, so
yeah.
We'll get Knut to read Fingerprints of the Gods one of these days. So maybe we'll find the audiobook or something like that. But
maybe we'll start our own Discovery Channel one day. What do you think?
That would be good.
This might be our own Discovery Channel, by the way. We might have already started it.
On our way.
And go to comebackcountry.com and see the Comeback Country. I can't say that. Comeback Country. Comeback Country. Must be my inner Swede having a problem.
You've got come and cunt in the same little sentence.
Yes, that was actually, I'm glad you found the Easter eggs.
That's why it's called that. Yeah. Anyway, so go and watch Come Country as soon as you can. Yes, YouTube is you're gonna have to cut it out if YouTube bans this thing. Anyway, great talking to you, Shooter, and looking forward to seeing you in Miami. And good luck with anything you do, of course. Because
thank you very much.
We are one.
yes, we are one. We're on the same page. We're all doing the same mission. Don't worry, boys. I'm gonna get it.
Yeah, excellent.
Awesome.
And
good luck.
Just to say, even if we weren't the same being, I'd still wish you good luck on all of your endeavors.
Thank you. Very kind of you. Really nice talking to you guys. Thank you so much, man. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, take care.
This has been the Freedom Footprint Show. Thanks for listening.